Okay, we're on Pei Amid Aleph. So the Gemara had brought a brisa which had mentioned the following statement. It said, we're up to Amar Mar, 8 lines from the bottom on Pei Amid Aleph. Amar Mar, Emachal enigma dina yolda v'lo muteres. The Mishnah said, the brisa had said, if we should let's actually go back. Vatanya, like it's 7 lines down from the top. Vatanya, parashay misav achkach yolda. A para, a cow that killed someone, a person. Achkach yolda, and then the cow gave birth. Imachal enigma dina yolda. If before there was a gemar din on this animal, that means if, strangely enough, we take a cow to court. If a cow kills someone, we have to go to Sanhedrin, and we paskin that it gets misa. So if before that sentence was announced on the cow, if the cow gave birth to a calf, vlad mutter. It's vlad is mutter. It doesn't have a din that it's asaba. No, it doesn't have a din that it has to get killed. Imishanigma dina yolda vlad asa. But on the other hand, if it was after the Gemara din, it was this cow was already sentenced to misa, and then it gave birth, the vlad is going to be asur because it's going to say that the verdict was pronounced on the vlad just as much on the mother. At the time of the Gemara din, the vlad was part of the mother, and it was announced on the vlad. Okay, so that's what the Gemara now is going to be explaining. Now we're going to skip down to Amar Mar, again 8 lines from the bottom. Imachal enigma dina yolda vlad muteres. So the with the Gemara saying, it sounds like that as long as the Gemara din was actually nigma, if the animal gives birth, so the vlad is not part of the animal at the time of the verdict. So even though the animal was part of the mother when the mother killed someone, it's because she was already mubaris, the vlad, the calf, is still going to be mutter. The Gemara says that seems strange. A vlad that struck someone, that gores someone and kills him, asur. He vlad enough to, because both of them are considered to have gored the person. The vlad was part of the animal that gored someone, so it gets a verdict of death. I mean, just you have to keep in mind, obviously this is not a punishment to the cow for doing the wrong thing. Cows don't have a yetzer hara and a yetzer type. They're not getting punished for doing a bad thing. They don't have any. There's no mitzvahs on a cow. This is a psak. This is what the Torah says you have to do. So we're saying an animal that gores has to get killed, and an animal that gets sentenced to death. Any part of that animal is sentenced to death. So the Gemara is saying, what difference does it make if the animal gave birth before the Gemara did? But if the vlad was part of the cow at the time of the gicha, that itself should be enough to pronounce a sentence of death on the vlad. Okay, the Gemara says that it's similar than vlad hanirbas also. Hiu vlad hanirbo. If a animal was washamakolt, was nirvas, someone was mrevei an animal, it also gets a din mis. Like we said before, we don't want people to go look at it and say that's the reason why a person got killed. So the same thing would be legabi the vlad of such an animal. So Zokamara. Hani chalamanda amar. I'm sorry, so I skipped. Ema ashle nigmadina ibra biyalda. So you have to change it. If the animal first became conceived, it wasn't pregnant at the time that the cow, the mother, killed someone, but it conceived afterwards, and it gave birth before the Gemara din, vlad the mutter. Then the vlad is mutter, because it wasn't part of the mother either at the time that it committed the murder or at the time that it was sentenced to death. But even though this animal was born after the murder, the vlad, it was conceived after the murder, since the vlad was born after the Gemara din, after the verdict applies to that animal. This is good according to the mandama, that if you have one parent who is asa bahana, meaning let's say a mother who killed someone, and the father of the animal, is a regular bull who never did anything wrong. That one man Omer says that that they're going to be usher. So that's the reason why that it's possible that after the Gemar Din it should be usher, because the mother had a Gemar Din that ushers, and the father did not. So we'll say that it's not going to be usher. That says that you have two parents of this calf, and one of the parents was kosher, and the other was the mother who got a Gemar Din of Isser. It's going to be mutter. Why are we saying if the vlad was conceived after the negicha, and then the Gemar Din happened while the calf was inside the mother's stomach? Why would we say it's going to be awesome? Ravina says we have to understand the Brisa different, the Mishnah differently. If before the Gemar Din the animal conceived, biyolda, and it gave birth ladamut. That's like we said before. That's the same as we said before. Because if the animal was nigmardina with the vlad part of it, then the vlad is going to be also, because the over is considered to be part of the animal. There's no exception for the right. Before we wanted to say, I'm sorry, I think I might have misstated. The previous answer was that we're talking about that the vlad was conceived and born after the Gemar Din. So the mother is aser and the father is mutter. So we say, in that case, it will depend on whether we look at the ancestry of this vlad. Does it go after both the mother and the father? And since the mother is aser, it's going to be aser. Then it makes sense why it should be aser. But according to the other mandam who said that it would be mutter under the circumstance, because the mother is aser, but the child didn't do anything. The child was not a party at the time either of the murder or at the time of the verdict. So the fact that the mother was aser doesn't make the child aser, because the father was mutter. But over here we're saying there's a different issue. Since the vlad was around at the time of the Gemar Din, and Uber Yerachim, the child is considered to be part of the mother, so the verdict is pronounced on the calf as well, and that's the reason why it will be us. Okay, so the Mishnah continued. Kol chayve misas. We said in the Mishnah that whenever you have someone who is supposed to get one type of misa, and it gets mixed in with other people who are mechuyev misa, you're going to give all of them the most kaldik misa, whichever is the least painful type of misa. Obviously, right? If let's say one person was machal Shabbos and he gets skila, and another person killed someone, and for that you get sayif. And according to everyone, skila is more chomer than sayif, and they got mixed together. So Gemara says the person who was over on Chilul Shabbos, he's going to get his head chopped off like someone who was Machal Shabbos. But the hasra that he got at the time that he was Machal Shabbos was for skila. It wasn't for sayif. So how could he get a different type of execution than that which he was warned about? So it must be whenever you warn someone that you can, if you do this, if you're going to be Machal Shabbos, you're going to get a din of skila, then the person included in that is that, that's that we're telling him the worst case scenario. But included in that is also that you could get a lower type of hasra. And we actually see that this is relevant, because we know that if a person is unable to get the type of misa that he's supposed to get, he gets a lower level, right? You said if a guy killed someone, he's running away, and there's a Gemar Din that he gets misa and he's running away in the field. There, instead of chopping his head off, they can send a firebomb and burn him to death. So the same thing, when you get a hasra for more chomer type of misa, it includes also a more kula. This is saying except for as opposed to Anshe Nidachas, that we know we had this in Sanhedrin, that they get very strict scrutiny, that you could even if you could even entrap them, and we don't give them the benefit of doubt in Bezdin, but everyone else you don't kill them unless you have an Ada, you have a full Sanhedrin, and you have to have Edim, and you have to have Asra. Until you let him know that he's going to be Mechayiv Misas Bezdin. Yehuda says you have to tell him not just, you can't just give him Asra that he's going to get killed. He has to have Asra exactly which Misa he's going to get. So our Tana that says that you can get a more Chamadika Misa. If someone was get Hasra for a more Chamadika Misa, and it turns out he gets mixed up with someone with a lower type of Misa, he gets the lower Misa, he must hold, like the Tanakama, that all you have to do is Misa. All you have to do is tell him that he's Chayav Misa. It doesn't make a difference if you told him the precise method of execution. Tanakaya, so the Gemara Tanakama Yahweh from the Kaishish. The Tanakama who says, like our Mishnah, that you can change one method of Misa for another, because the Hasra is valid for another. We learn that from the Mekaishis. Mekaishis was in the Pasuk where there was somebody who chopped wood on Shabbos, and they didn't know what type of Misa he's going to get. And ultimately, the Moshe Rabbeinu asked the Shaila, and they found out what Misa to give him. So, but obviously at the time that he did it, even if he got Asra, they weren't able to give him Asra of what type of Misa he's going to get, because nobody knew. So even so, you see that was a valid Asra. So Yehuda says, no, you can't be Garaya. The person was warned that if you're going to do it, you're going to get killed, because nobody knew what the Moshe Rabbeinu himself didn't know what the Misa was. So it's only under those circumstances that it wasn't necessary to say what type of Misa you're going to get in the Hasra. But normally, if you just give a generic Hasra, it's not going to apply if the person ends up having you're going to have to specify which type of Misa he's going to get. So the Mishnah continued. The Mishnah said, if you have Haniskolim bin Israfin, let's go back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah had said, no, that's not over there. Where's the Mishnah? On Amud Aleph? No. On Ayin Tes Amud Beis. Okay, so the Mishnah said, Haniskolim bin Israfin, if you mix together, the Mishnah says, if you mix together some people who are supposed to get skila with Nisrafin, with those who are supposed to get Sreifa. And the mashmais of that, like the Gemara is going to be, if that there's more of those people who are supposed to get Sreifa, and some people who are supposed to get Skila got mixed into them. So you had 10 people supposed to get Sreifa, and one person who's supposed to get Skila. Shimon Nidayin b'Skila, he gets Skila, Sreifa Chamura. If Shimon holds that Sreifa is more Chamur than Skila, we've had this a bunch of times. This was in Mishnah earlier, that Shimon holds Sreifa is more Chamur. So therefore, since Sreifa is Chamur, this person who got mixed in with the Nisrafin is going to get Skila, because you can't, all these Nisrafin are going to be downgraded to Skila, because you can't give the one person who was supposed to get Skila, get a Muhammadic of Sreifa. The Chum say no, everyone's going to get Sreifa because Shas Skila Chamur. They hold that Skila is Muhammad. Okay. So we'll leave the rest of the Mishnah. That's not really the point. So Zak the Gemara, well, yeah. So then, yeah. Okay. So now let's go back to the Gemara. Haniskal Minisraf Masni Rav Cheskel Rami Brei. Yecheskel taught his son Rami. which is going to be important later on. Hanisrafim miniskalin. If, like we said, if those that gets, if some people who were mechuyev sreifa got mixed in with a bunch of people who were mechuyev skila, if Shimon Oimei yadunu b'skila, if Shimon says they should get skila shasreifa chamura because sreifa is mechamer, and therefore, like the rule of our Mishnah, you always give the more kuladika one when they're mixed together. Amle Yehuda Abba Nisuah Hachi. Rabbi Yehuda said, you shouldn't, you're not learning this properly. You're not saying the Rabbi Yehuda was also a son of Rabbi Yecheskel, in addition to Rami. He also heard him say this. He said to Rabbi Yecheskel, you're not saying this correctly. My ear disreifa chamura. If it's talking about a case, if the Mishnah is really that there were fewer niskalim that mixed into a larger amount of nisrafim, so why are you saying that the reason why, according to Reb Shimon, you say yedainu b'skila is because Sreifa is Chamura, even without the fact that Sreifa is Chamura? Typically, the Ruben is Skalin in him. Say, since most of them are Skalin, so even if Sreifa is not Chamura, even if Sreifa is the same as Skila, you still would do Skila, because even if Sreifa and Skila are Shava, you go with the Rive. Elahechi Esnaya. You have to learn Haniskola Minisra. It's the other way around. If there were more that were Mechuyev Skila that got mixed in with those who are Mechuyev Sreif. Shimon says, even though there's more Nisraf, and you're still going to get Skila, Shasreifa Chamura, because you can't apply Sreifa, even though that's the Rive, you can't apply it because Skila, Sreifa is Chamura. Gemara, so Rami Yecheskel said back to Yehuda, what about the Sefer? It says the other way around. The Chamim who say Sreifa is that Skila is Chamura, they say he gets Sreifa. Typically, the Reuben is Rabin say the same question like you had asked according to Rav Shimon. So Gemara, no. Hasan Rabbanan Ka'amle Rav Shimon. That was just the Rabbanan's response to Rav Shimon. Lidi dach the Amrit Sreifa Chamura. According to you, you're saying that Sreifa is Chamura, loy Skila Chamura. They're just responding that Skila is Chamura, but they're not trying to give the case that demonstrates that. They're just saying in the case that you mentioned, but we're not optimizing the case to bring out that point. So there's no rye from that. Amalei, this is a very fascinating thing which I made sure to tell my son over Shabbos. Amalei Shmuel of Yehuda. Shenina, you sharp-tongued person. This is Rabbi Yehuda was saying it to his father, Rabbi Yecheskel. He said you have the wrong version of the Mishnah. He said it's not the way to talk to your father, Tanya. If his father's making a mistake, he's being over on what a pasuk says. You don't tell your father you're being over on a dvar Torah. Instead of saying you're transgressing the Torah, you're violating what it says in the Torah, you just tell your father, I want to inform you, there's a pasuk that says "Lo sigzol," and you're stealing. You don't even have to say you're stealing. Just say it says in the pasuk "Lo sigzol." Gemara, even that you can't say. Soif hainu hach. If your father's, taking out, what do you call it? He sees a pocketbook lying in the street, and he's taking out $1 from it, and you say to him, it says in the Torah "Lo sigzol," basically he's saying you're a gazlan. What do you have to say? Abba, mikra kasa b'Torah kaf. You don't say this is what it's written in the Torah on what you said. You're misreading. You say, I'm just telling you. He's just letting you know there is a pasuk. Instead of saying that you are telling him, instead of saying to him, you thought that the pasuk says this. This is what it says. You should tell him. Because it doesn't make a difference whether you tell him you're making a mistake, you're being over al divrei Torah. You just say, you're saying the pasuk like this is what it really says. You just say, I think this is what it says in the Torah, and then he can draw his own conclusions from it. Zok the Mishnah. Mishin is chayiv b'shtei misas bezdin. Someone who's mechoyev 2 misas bezdin. This is not 2 people. This is one person who did 2 things. He was Machal Shabbos, and he was also, he killed someone. Neither B'chamura. So in the case that we just said, where he used Machal Shabbos, he's going to get skila rather than sayif or hereg of a murder. What if he was over on one avera that has two mises in it? Rashi gives the example like someone who was ba on his mother-in-law, and she's also an Eishes Ish. So for Chamaisai, the din is, I think it's Sreifa, and for Eishes Ish, the din is Chenek. So Sreifa is Mochamer. Nidim B'chamura. He gets the Mohammedic one. Rabbi Yossi on Nidim Bezika Harishayna Shabal. Rabbi Yossi says he's instead of getting in the Mohammed one, he gets on the first one that came on him. The Gemara is going to explain what that is. So let's go back on the first thing. We said someone who's Mechayiv two Mises Bezin. He did two things. We say he gets the Mohammed one. Dr. Gemara Pshita Elizguri Iskar. What are you suggesting? That someone who does two things, he should get the more Kuladika one? It means that would mean if somebody went and was Machal Shabbos and he gets skila and he says, oh, I'm doomed anyway. I might as well go kill someone so that way I'll get downgraded to the more kulidik one. It doesn't make any sense that for doing an additional thing you're going to get a lighter sentence. We're talking about what he did. He already killed someone. And he already got the verdict of herod, the lighter sentence. And then he went and was over on the second thing. It's more chamer. He went and he was Machal Shabbos, which gets skila. Since he already got a Gemar Din that he's supposed to be killed with Chanek, maybe he's like a treifa. We had a Havamina that someone who's a treifa, maybe he shouldn't be mechoyev if he kills someone because he's already like he's dead. So this person, once he has a Gemar Din Lamisa, he's already like a dead person and he can't get a new Gemar Din for a more Chamadik Amisa. Kamash Malon. Vaistai says now. Bo Aminei Achva the Rav Yosef Bar Chama May Rabba Bar Nosan. The brother of Rav Yosef Bar Chama asked Rabba Bar Nosan, Minoha Milsa. Where do we know this din that we just said that someone who is already convicted of a lighter sentence, he doesn't get downgraded, and he does commits a more heinous act that gets him a stricter type of misa, that he gets upgraded to get the more strict type of misa, the worst misa. T'chsiv, V'hoiled ben Paretz, talking about Yecheskel is talking about the people who do terrible things. He gives birth to a wild son, Sheifich Dam, who kills people. Al Haramachal, he eats on the mountains. Ves'eshus re'eu time, he's metame his wife, his friend's wife. He's Ivan Gilerais. And he puts his eyes, he casts his eyes toward the idols. So the pasuk, what does that mean? V'hoiled ben Paretz Sheifich Dam beside. Says V'hoiled ben Paretz, he gives birth to a wild kid. That means someone who kills. Sheifich Dam, who gets saif, who gets hurt. It's Eishes Re'yu Zu Eishes Ish B'chenek. Vel Hal Gugulim Nasa Einav Z'avayt Z'chavim B'skila. The last one is B'skila. Chsiv Mois Yumas Damav Boy. At the end, the next pasuk says he has a din that he gets killed Damav Boy. So Yeh B'skila, as we know, there's a Gzeir Shavim Damav Boy. That's where we learn that everything gets skila. So this means all of them, he gets skila, even though in the pasuk he was first over on the Muhammadika thing. So you see that someone who's over on the more kuladika thing. You see, even though he got a Gemara Din for the kuladika thing, the first thing it mentioned in the pasuk was someone who was roitzeach who gets hereg, and the last thing is skila, which is more chamer. We see that he gets the Muhammadika skila. So that's where we see that's the source that you get the most chamadika thing. We don't say that once he already got a Gemara Din for Misa, he's like a Bar Katalu who can't get any new verdict of a chamadika Misa. Maslo Nachman by Yitzchak. Ema Kula B'skilu. Maybe all of these are really people. He did all these Isurim mentioned in the pasuk are Mechoyev Skila. V'hoiled ben Paretz Sheifich Dam. The first part of the pasuk who said that he gives birth to a violent child who kills people. Zeh ben Sairu Meira, the Beskila. Talking about a ben Sairu Meira, because a ben Sairu Meira, the reason why he gets killed is because we're worried that he's going to run out of money and he's going to have to go steal. and when he's going to be holding people up, he's going to end up having to kill. So we call him a shayfet dam, and he also gets a din skila. Eisus re'yehu tima, and that's someone who's born eisus re'yehu zunai marasa the beskila. It's talking about a nayar marasa who also gets skila. That's always skila. So then you wouldn't have a raya that someone who was over on a variety of Yisurim gets the most chamadika one. So if that's the case, that it's all skila, what is the pasuk telling you? Maybe it's just telling you what the dinim of these things are. Maybe it's not coming to tell you a chiddush that if they're all, he's over on a bunch of disparate einshim, that he gets the most chamadika one. So Gemara, if it's just listing the surim that Moshe Rabbeinu had said, talking about Ben Saru Meir and Naira Meirasa and Eved Avos Kichav, he should have said it the way the Torah says it. Why would he repeat the halachas in this type of form? It must be coming to tell you the chiddush that if you're over on different things, you get the most chamadika one. Darash Reb Acha Bar Chanina. My dichsev elahorim loyacha. What is the part of the pasuk says that the pasuk that we had just quoted was Al-Harim Achal, but there's an earlier pasuk that says that a tzaddik doesn't do these things, and it says Al-Harim Loyachal, he doesn't eat on the mountain. What does that mean? Shalei Achal Beschus Avaisav, or I think I forgot what the word is. What is Aleph? The Gra changes it. Bishvil Avaisa. It means somebody who doesn't have to. He has enough schusim that he doesn't have to depend on Avram Yitzchak and Yaakov, the schusim of Avram Yitzchak and Yaakov, to help with the Baishno. The Einav Lenasa El Gulule Beis Yisrael. The Einav Lenasa El Gulule Beis Yisrael. Shleihalach B'kumas Kufa. That just means that he didn't walk with a arrogant posture. That's Eishas Re'eu Leitima Shleiyorad L'Omnes Chaver. That means that he was not over on Hasagas Gvul. He didn't take away business from his friend. That means someone who is not nena from the kupa of tzedakah. He didn't take charity. Rashi explains how does that mean isha nida lekir? What does that have to do with tzedakah? So Rashi, shudavar gnai la'adam hagel. A proper person is allergic to the concept. A proper person is allergic to the concept of taking from tzedakah. So nida is a uncleanliness. It's a lack of hagan. In spite of what all the apologetics, when they want to explain the hilchos nida, they say it's not. There's Rashi that there's a taint to being a nida. So, but this is a person who's a hagan, stays away from tzedakah. And uksiv tzaddik hu chaya yichya. Such a person who does all these things, he's a tzaddik and he's going to live. When Reb Gamliel got to this pasuk that lists all the things that a person should do, and he's going to be a tzaddik v'chaya, we cry, someone who does all these things, he's going to live. But if you only do one of them, or even if he misses one of them, he's not going to live. Only if that's the case, like we said, this is a paired pasuk. The first part of the pasuk says these are the things a person should do and live. And the second part of the pasuk is what we had originally quoted, which said that a person's going to die if he does all the other things. So what about the other part of them? And all the things that we say, if a person's going to do it, if he's born on a isha, he's the zara, does it mean you have to do all of them in order to be mechayiv misa? Must mean that if you do any one of them, you're mechayiv misa. Also, this list of things that a tzaddik does, it also means any one of them.
So if any one of them he does, he's a tzaddik?
He's going to live. The Rebbe is going to. What does that mean? I don't know. He's going to get arichas yomim. He's going to get. He gets a psak on he gets another year of life. I don't know. Whatever that means that he gets. But that's the end of the pasuk. The pasuk is. Elaharim le'achal ve'enav le'nasa el gulei beis Yisrael v'zeishu eloi tibe elisha nida le'yikarev, and the pasuk ends Al tatamu chal eila b'chal eila nitbu hagayim Hashem. No, that's not the end of the pasuk. Where is the pasuk? Tzadiku chaya yichya. Yeah. The Bible says you're going to live if you do these things. This is the way of life, is to do these things. So you're saying, I have to do all of these things. I have to be such a high level. I'm never masig vul. I never take any tzedakah. Said it's such a high bar that you have to do all these things to be in the Sefer HaChaim. So he said, no, don't worry. There was also a list of averos, and he said you get killed if you do them. And there you certainly get misa if you do any one of them. So the list of positive things that gets you Chaim, also it's with any one of them. Dr. Gemara. Over Avera, we said if he does any Avera that causes him to mechoyev two things. Like we said, he was born Chamoisei, who was also an Eishes Ish. We said he gets the Mohammedic one. Rabbi Yossi says he gets the one that it was Zika on it first. What does it mean that he gets the one that there was Zika Rishona? It says Habal of Chamoisei. If someone who was born on his, Habal of Chamoisei, if he was born a woman and she was first Chamoisei and then she became an Eishes Ish. So this woman is also to him, but she was first his mother-in-law, right? He was married to this woman, and her mother at that point was not married. The father, however she was married to originally is not there, or he wasn't married to her in the first place. But then she got married later, and now the son-in-law was born. Then the din is you go after the first thing, that the first Isser that was present in this woman. Eishes Ish v'nash Chamaisa, but it was the other way around, meaning that she was already married when she gave birth to this. I'm sorry. Yeah, she was already married. What was that case? Right. That she was already married to whoever she was married to at the time that this man who's born her got married to her daughter. So then we say that the Eishes Ish preceded the Isser preceded the Isser of Chamaisa. If it was Chamaisa, it was first. Then it became Eishes Ish. So again, Chamaisa has the Isser Skila and Eishes Ish has the Isser Chenek. The Nidin as the Isser Chamois. In fact, the Gemara Lid Nami Isser Eishes. Let her also be also for the let him also be responsible for the Isser Eishes Ish of Chanek. The Amr of Avo Moider Yosef Isser Moisef. He said to him, Rabbi Yossi is Moider, even though he says that you can't any Isser Chalal Isser. Once there's one Isser in place, the second Isser doesn't take place, doesn't make room. That's only if it's only relevant to the person that you're talking about. But if the fact that if someone was, what's this case? When she was Chamoisa, she's only also to the people, let's say she was only also to him als Chamoisa. This was the only son-in-law. But then she got married, she's also to the whole world as an Eishes Ish. So that her status changed regarding a whole bunch of people. So we don't just look at how her stance changed regarding this one person. We look in the whole world that she become asa to a bunch more people. So l'chayra it should be that she should have changed, and let's apply the second misa. So tomorrow amalei adabri betray katli katlulei. What do you? It's true that you wouldn't say einis chalis. It's you're only going to give the Muhammadic one, and she was already asar al chamaisei. So what are you trying to say? Should also be asar al Eishes Ish. It's impossible. Even if the Isser Eishes Ish would also apply, she would nevertheless still get the original Isser Skila. So adding on an Isser is not going to change anything. But Lamaisa Rashi says it would make an afkamina in a case where it was b'shaygig, that there would be two chatayas, and Einachami l'chayr would be maskim in that case. Okay, what time is it? 9:29. Let's give it another 5 minutes because this is should go quick. Misha Loka Vishana. Someone who got Malchus, and then he did the same thing again, and he had to get Malchus again. They stick him in a cage in jail. We had this in Rashi before. So when you put someone in a cage, what it means is you put him in a cage and you make sure he dies. You feed him barley that causes his stomach to explode. Because he got Malchus twice, he goes into the jail and gets killed. We're talking about not Stam Malchus, where there's a law that the Torah says you're going to get Malchus for it, but it's talking about someone who is really supposed to get Karas. So he's supposed to get Misa B'dei Shamayim. Karas means he's supposed to die. But the din is if there's no Edom or there's no if there's no Hasra of Karas, or he doesn't get Karas, so then we give him Malchus. So this is a he got a hasra that he's going to get Malchus if he does this, and since Krisus b'dei shamayim, he gets Malchus for this chayve Krisus. The Gavra bar Katalu, so he's really someone who should get Misa. Who delay mikriv Katale, but he was unable to get his. He wasn't able to get his sentence, his real sentence of Misa. Let me see his Rashi, because it's the Gavra bar Katalu b'dei shamayim echasu. He's a chayiv krisus. V'kravi udolei makrav katala adayin le'niskavra misasa. It's a Misa that he's supposed to get, but the Karas just didn't apply yet. So in the meantime, he didn't get it. So v'kivin the mavata lo nafshay magvinin le'lektala. Since this person keeps on doing this thing that's Mechayev and Krisus, he clearly doesn't care about that he's being Makar of his Misa, he's causing himself to get Karas, so we help him along. You really want to kill yourself by continually doing Averis that are Mechayev Misa, so Bezdin hastens him along the path. The Malki shall Karas Achas. Avashal Shtayim v'shal Shalit Krisus Yisuruhu dekatoyim lemevater kulehai. This is only if he did the same Karas, the same Isur a bunch of times. But if he did a bunch of different Isurim, so we don't say that he doesn't care about getting Karas. He's just someone who has a Yetzer Hara. So he did this thing. He one time had a Yetzer Hara to be Mechal Shabbos, and he one time had a Yetzer. I don't know if that's a Chiv Karas, but he did one Issachar, then he did another Issachar, and he got a different Yetzer Hara each time. But it doesn't mean that he's abandoning himself to be killed. Means if he repeated it, even though he didn't do it 3 times, even though he didn't get the Malchus 3 times. Zok the Gemara. It's not like Rav Shimon Gamliel. Rav Shimon Gamliel says you need 3 times to become a chazaka, and he didn't get the 3 Malchus yet. He can even say Rav Savar Averis Machzikas. He says it's not getting the Malchus that makes the chazaka, that he doesn't care about getting killed. It's the doing the Avera 3 times that makes the chazaka that he's going to keep on doing it, and therefore Bezdin goes ahead and makes sure he dies in jail. First 2 times you give him Malchus. The 3rd time you put him into a jail. He says you give him the 3rd Malchus, and then after that you put him in the kippah. Everyone holds that it's the Malchus that caused the chazaka. It's not based on the Aver, but rather it's the Malchus. Look to the Rabbi Rav Shimon Gamliel, and the machlokes is whether you hold like Rav Shimon Gamliel that you need 3, or you hold like Rabbi that you need 2, and after 2 he's already ready to get to be put into the kippah. So the Kuli Am Rav Shimon Gamliel. This is what the machlokes. The Mar Sava Averis Machzikas. One mandama holds that Avera is machzik. Masava, Malkias machzikas. The question is whether the Averas or the Malkias are machzikas. V'hada Tanya, in fact, the Gemara, Hishru boy v'shasa. If someone gave a hasra and the person did not respond, as we saw before, hasra, the person has to respond, even though you're telling me, and this is what my energy is going to be, I'm going to do it nevertheless. And he was quiet, Hishru boy v'hirkin. Or they warned him, and he said, "Okay." He nodded. He said yes, but he didn't say, "I'm okay with it." He didn't say, "Afal pikein." Hirkin roishay parmishay nushniya masrbai. The first and second time that he does this, they give him hasra. But shlishis kind of says I say lemisa. Now these are not hasras that you can give the person einish for, because he never said afal pikein. So the first time, if he does this twice and then he does the avera, so you're stuck. You can't give him the einish. And then the third time, there's a machlokes. Do we at this point just give him the same warning again, or do we immediately put him in the kisa? And after the third time that he got asra, the fourth time you give him the keeper. And then there's no malchus. So if you say that it's tali in the malchus, like we were saying, it's machlokes, but it's tali in the malchus, it's tali in the hasra or in the avera, there was never any malchus to say that he has a chazaka to go in the chipa. The question is whether a keeper needs a hasra. When a person is about to be, he's at the point where Bezin is going to put him in the jail and feed him barley to cause him to die, does he need a hasra for that? Umay keeper, Rabbi Yehuda, Maloi kumsa. What is the keeper? It's his height, it's a jail, his height. Where do we see such a thing? The Avera is going to kill a bad person, meaning this person who's a Rasha, he's going to cause him to die because he's going to end up dying, not because of the Avera that he did, but because he persisted in doing it, so Bezin was given no choice other than to cause him to die. A person doesn't know his time, like a fish that's caught on a hook. A fish hook. It means a person never knows when he's going to die. Just like a fish hook comes out of nowhere, it's a trap. It's something that gets an animal. He does not looking for it. Same thing with a person. You never know when your time is going to come. Okay. Shkayach, we'll stop over here.
10 to 8
10 to 8, if you don't mind.